Yo, what's going on, YouTube, and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte. So today we are continuing to look at the rumors around Mitch Marner and the Toronto Maple Leafs. There's been a lot of interesting discussion about what his future is, if it's with the Leafs, if it's with the team in the Western Conference. We're going to take a look at all of that today. We're going to give you an update right now. So, without further ado, let's take a look here. The Maple Leafs situation around Mitch Marner is interesting because you got to remember, in July 1st of 2025, Mitch Marner will be an unrestricted free agent. So, as soon as July 1st of 2024, which is next month, the Leafs will have the option, alongside with Marner and his camp, to sign an extension. So, where does that leave the room here for whether he gets signed long-term or traded? This is it. This is the time for them to decide what they're going to do. Now, all indications have been from Marner's camp that he wants to stay in Toronto. This is a team that he grew up cheering for. He's mentioned that thousands of times before. He wanted to get his money, but he wants to play here. Now, on the other side for the Leafs, they're probably thinking, okay, he's been around for a while. This core has been around for a while. We haven't had much success. This might be something where it's not necessarily someone we want to trade or want to move on from, but in this circumstance we're in today, this might be the guy that, just the way timing works sometimes, is the guy that finds his way out. Now, there's a report from David Pagnotta the other day. He said the Maple Leafs have not approached Mitch Marner about waiving his no-move clause, which is also part of this situation. And his preference is to remain in Toronto long-term. Like I said, that's nothing really new there, but it's more so in terms of the latest update, at least from the other day, is that no one has spoken to Mitch Marner about waiving that no-move clause or asking which teams he'd prefer to go to and not go to. So at this point, everything is still up in the air in terms of the actual details on whether he gets moved or not. So the rest of this at this point is just purely speculation, but that's what this channel is about. We're going to speculate and see what's potentially on the table. So this is from the fourth period the other day. They mentioned that keep an eye on the Chicago Blackhawks, the Dallas Stars, the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Nashville Predators if Mitch Marner agrees to a trade. This makes sense for a couple reasons. Chicago, Dallas, Vegas, and Nashville, all in different phases of either a rebuild or a cup contending situation, but they're all trying to move forward, right, and progress. Now, for Vegas, it's a different situation. I would say they're the team, and, well, really, Dallas and Vegas are similar in the sense that they're both chasing Stanley Cups right now. But I think Dallas will have more flexibility than Vegas to get a deal like that done. So Vegas, I think, is in the conversation. We know what Kelly McCrimmon has been able to do in the past in terms of making moves. Also, you have to consider the trade assets that could be going the other way. I've mentioned it here before. I'll just say, I told you so. But there is an interesting player in Vegas that could be an option if something were to arise there. So that's very interesting. Nashville's interesting alongside Chicago in the sense that they're rebuilding teams. So now they're really trying to, if they're going to make this type of trade, they're giving up futures and potentially young players that are maybe on the cheap that Toronto can slot in the lineup that bring more value than their contract in order to get something else, right? So here's the way I look at this, right? So Dallas and Vegas are teams that they're going to have to move money back to Toronto. So if it's Vegas, the easy one is one of their defensemen, whether it's Shea Theodore, Nick Hague, one of those guys, right, would have to go the other way in the deal. For Dallas, what's interesting about Dallas, it would be a defenseman potentially, but who, right? Like, I don't see them trading a guy like Chris Tanev. I think the trade assets for Dallas are a little bit less. It's harder to make that deal work unless they're willing to trade some of those young guys like a Maverick it's Maverick Bork, or what's the other kid that's playing really well? Wyatt Johnston, right? Like, I don't see Dallas trading those guys. So unless there's some kind of deal with draft picks and other prospects involved, I don't know if a deal with Dallas really makes as much sense. Now, Chicago, again, interesting in the sense that they have a lot of younger assets, but they have a lot of good defensive prospects. Now, I know that's not what Leaf fans want to hear right now, but these are guys that have been in the Blackhawks system, developing for a few years. They're probably pretty close to being NHL ready. Guys like Ethan Del Maestro, Kevin Korchinski, those are names to watch for. Like I said, It's not necessarily what Leaf fans want to hear. They want to win right now. But if you're trading with a team like Chicago, that's probably the return you're going to get. And then for Nashville, Nashville's different in the sense of potentially a goaltender. If I almost called him Juice. If UC Saros is indeed available, that's a player to watch. And that's a player that if I'm Toronto, that's probably the guy they're going after. And now that a guy like McDonough's been traded, that frees them up of a little bit of space in terms of money. Nashville's interesting. Everyone's looking at that deal saying that deal doesn't really seem to matter, but that's one I'm thinking to myself, maybe there's more to that, right? Why did they trade McDonough? Why did they trade him right now, right? Maybe because of the finances and a deal for Marner. So there's some interesting things you could underlie, right? Like the Islanders and the Blackhawks made a weird trade the other day. I didn't even make a video about it because it was just so, not worth mentioning. But, as much as it sucks that McDonough might not be available in that Marner trade, which I don't think it would have been anyway, it frees up that cap space. And that's really, I think, what you have to look at. And yeah, I've heard rumors that maybe even the Kings could be involved in a deal like that. But the problem with that is they are tied up so much in terms of money already in forwards. Like, if they didn't have Pierre-Luc Dubois, maybe I would say, yeah, that would be a good destination for Marner. But now that they've got Dubois locked in there, I just don't see them having the money to do that. The Islanders have been mentioned in the past. Columbus was really close, right? There was rumors they were even going to throw an offer sheet at Marner the last time around with his contract situation. But things are so different right now with both of those teams. The Islanders are in the sense of, I just don't think they're going to trade with the Leafs in terms of a deal like that. It could happen. I don't think it's likely, though. Unless the Islanders are willing to give up like a Noah Dobson, which I don't see the Islanders doing. I've seen Leaf fans throwing that rumor. Listen, if the Islanders make that deal, I will be a very, very sad person. The Islanders need defensive help. They can't trade a guy like that. So, yeah, really, in terms of the four teams mentioned here, between Chicago, Dallas, Vegas, and Nashville, I really like the idea of Vegas here. I think this is one that probably people are not thinking can work, but it could. And I think this is one that if I'm the Leafs, if you're looking for a quality defenseman returning the other way, purely one, maybe not one for one, but a trade of some kind for Mitch Marner, you're going to get the most value you possibly can out of a deal, out of getting a guy like Theodore or Haig coming the other way from a team like Vegas. Because like I said, I don't think Dallas is trading any of their good defensemen, to be honest with you, or any of their younger prospects up front. Chicago, like I said, could be interesting, but that's more of a developmental deal. And I just think Nashville's a player there, but I don't know how deep into that deal for Marner they're necessarily in. I think the McDonough deal means something for Nashville, but I don't know if Barry Trotz is going to go out there and get Marner. I don't really know. But then again, the last time around with the contract situation, he was the head coach of the Islanders when the Islanders were snooping around on potentially an offer sheet or a trade for Marner with Lou Lamoriello and the Islanders. So there's a lot of things to consider, a lot of things to think about, what could happen, what will happen, completely different things. That's why, these videos, I enjoy making them, but usually when we look back, it's one of those things where you're like, I'm right maybe 15 or 20% of the time, and the other 80% of the time, something comes up, something happens along the way, and the deal breaks through, and nothing really comes of it. So I'd love to know what you guys think down below. Which of these teams that I mentioned today do you think realistically has a good shot at getting Mitch Marner in a trade this summer? Like I said, at this point, there has been no movement clause hasn't been touched. They haven't really talked to Marner much. I think they're still in the grieving process of the playoffs, but I think by the draft, things have to be figured out there, and they got to figure out fast what they want to do, because it's going to take some time for the Leafs management and the new coaching staff with Berube there to figure out what do we want here, right? What do we want to get in return? And I think now that Berube's in the fold, I think he's going to help them figure out, types of players that are going to fit well in his system, guys that are going to go along with his message and kind of concrete that message into the team. I know there's rumors right now the Leafs might be pursuing a guy like David Perron this summer, which again, there's been ties there with Berube, right? I think Berube won the Cup with Perron back in 2018 or 2019 with the St. Louis Blues. So there's a lot of different things that are getting thrown around. I'd love to know what you guys think, though, down below. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.